It's so nice to be back with everyone. Again, I'm Melissa Harris Perry, and I am joined by a fantastic panel to talk a little bit about the relevance and importance of relationships for our young people in the context of American education. Soledad O'Brien is, of course, as you know, an award-winning journalist, speaker, and author. You may not know, or maybe you do, about her extraordinary organization, the Powerful Foundation. And I say it that way because in Powerful is the her. The young women that she works with are a terrific group of young people, and she really supports youth success, the development of those relationships. Dion Jones, down there from the Glen Cano studio, is actually a former board member here of the America's Promise Alliance, and we were just hearing about an incredible project that he's been working on. And Dale Irkiaga, who is in the middle here, from the WIN Foundation. They are celebrating their 40th organization, excuse me, not from WIN, I'm sorry, it's because you're here for Elaine Wynn, who is someone who I just adore, from Communities in Schools, who just celebrated their 40th year, 40 years of working to bring caring adults into the lives of young people. And we were in the back talking about Elaine and the sort of caring adult that she is. But talk to me a little bit about 40 years of the work that you all have been doing in terms of communities in schools. What does it mean to bring communities into schools?
You bet. So first of all, I am here on behalf of Elaine Wynn, the chairman of the Board of Communities in Schools. I recognize that's a little bit like you came to see Hello, Dolly, and your program says the role of Bette Midler is being played by Harvey Fierstein, but I will do my best. I am very honored to represent Elaine, and I'm very honored to work for Communities in Schools. The founder of Communities in Schools, Bill Milliken, is here. Shout out to you, Bill. Bill started this organization based really on one primary belief: placing a caring adult inside school to assist principals and teachers and all the other folks who are there in helping children, primarily children in poverty, overcome barriers. That caring adult relationship is today, 40 years later, still the model for what we do. We have a lot of evidence, we have a lot of research for why it works and how it works, but at its core, it's about that relationship between a site coordinator, we call them, and students who are most at risk or who need that relationship the most. So where we started with about 3,000 kids, today we have 1.5 million children in the CIS family in 25 states and the District of Columbia. And it really is proof for me that that relationship model works.
I think, Dale, for me, part of what I value about that is the idea that students sitting in classrooms are not just they're not just passive receptacles for the information that teachers and principals are handing out. And Soledad, I think that notion that we bring our full selves to the process of education at any given moment, that whatever difficult moment that you're having in the day, whatever great moment, and that sometimes what you need is someone who can see you, not just visually see you walk through the door, but can actually see you. How is it that the work that you have been doing helps put young people into relationships with folks who can see them?
We started thinking about relationships as being very tactical. You couldn't say to someone, listen, you should go to college. You had to say, so here's an application. Tonight you're going to fill it out. In 2 days I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to review what you filled out. Then we're going to figure out who we need to send it to. After that, we're going to do a follow-up letter, and we're going to actually walk hand in hand with you. So I don't think these relationships can just be about inspiring and giving sort of general advice. It has to be very tactical. The same way, frankly, you, I know, are helping your children, and we're all sort of giving advice to those friends. We don't just send them off, we grab them by the hand. And that's what we've been trying to do with our young women. At first we thought just helping someone with tuition was amazing. Yep. And then you realize that's really important, but it's not nearly enough to get someone not just to school, but through school. To get through, you actually have to navigate people over road bumps. And frankly, a lot of the feedback we got from people who were successful was not just someone said, boy, you should check out that college, and career day downstairs in the gym. They took them by the hand and made them do it. And it was that tactical, strategic approach that we really modeled our foundation, the Powerful Foundation, on.
It's so interesting when you bring up my kids, when you're like, oh, I know you're helping your kids. And I think, my 3-year-old, because she'll still let me. But my 15-year-old is actually exactly at that point where she's like, I don't care. Nope, get away from me, mama. You don't know nothing. You're a fool. You're like, I knew I was brilliant until my child turned 12. And then I became an idiot. And right, it's a reminder that one adult is not enough, right? So part of what's interesting to me, part of what seems important to me, is that as we're thinking about the importance of these relationships, there isn't any one relationship that is sufficient, right? We actually need a network, a web, right? Because,
Absolutely.
I got a lot of resources, but my kid needs my sister. She needs her auntie. Because now, as a teenager, it's auntie she trusts, not mama.
Absolutely, absolutely. My story, and I came later, but I heard it was sort of played earlier today. But, born in Mississippi, a town called Wiggins, Mississippi, like 3,500 people. Poverty, not a lot of resources. And so I had great-grandma Shug. I had my mom who worked, 3 and 4 jobs. And so she needed great-grandma Shug because she was taking care of me and my sister and I. Great-grandma Shug made me watch the Oprah Winfrey Show. And Oprah tells this story that she was outside hanging clothes on the line, and we had to hang clothes on the line as well because we lived, our house had a lot of problems with like no dryer, no central air and central heat, and we had to hang clothes on the line. And Oprah said that her grandma looked at her, and this is 1954 in Mississippi with Oprah. She said that her grandma looked at her and said, Oprah, Gail, you gotta watch me now, because you're gonna have to do this for yourself one day. Because her grandmother's biggest dream for her was that she would be a maid. But Oprah said that this thing we all have called human instinct hit her and said, no, that wouldn't be my life. So I heard that story, and at that moment, I always had this feeling that the hand of destiny was on my life. But at that moment, I got free. And that freedom allowed me to walk through life knowing that any circumstance that I was experiencing would not be my life. And as I was walking, I met all these caring adults along the way. So I had my 10th grade teacher, who is a white Sicilian woman, who said that you can go to Harvard, or you can go to American University or Georgetown. I had professors in college who said you can be a Truman Scholar. I had people like Rob Gordon, who gave me my first job, and people like the Powells and I see Lacia Ward, who took me to the Oval Office for the first time, right? And as I moved forward in my career, I had a man, my boss now, Glenn Kino, who made this full circle moment happen for me because one of his other responsibilities, he does digital marketing. He leads the digital department at the Oprah Winfrey Network and brought me onto his team there. And so people like him and Jesse Williams who give me these leadership opportunities. And so this black boy joy that you see here today isn't the product of one person. It's the product of a plethora of caring adults who saw that hand of destiny on my life. And they poured into that, they mentored that, they nurtured that. And I'm reminded of a quote by Benjamin Mays that says, you only have a minute, only 60 seconds in it, but in that minute, there's eternity in that minute. And so for every child, that minute that you see them, wherever you are, however many children that you run into, in that minute, you can say one thing: I see you, I hear you. What you say and who you are matters to me, and it can change their entire life.
That's a wrap. We're done.
So Dale, an important part of Deion's testimony to me is as he tells that story, there are different kinds of people.
Yeah.
There are people he first sees mediated through television. There are people who are related to him. There are African American women, there are white men. There are all different kinds of people in this squad that are part of their capacity to see him. In communities and schools, how do you recruit the adults? So in this case, not the young people, but how do you say, you may think you don't look like the kids in this school, or you're not from this community, but actually you can be part of Deion's squad, part of Deion's team that will bring him through?
Yep. So it's one of the biggest challenges that we have. All program groups have this same challenge. We had this conversation this week in our Research Advisory Council about, is a psych coordinator, is this person born or can they be made? So can we train up an army of these sorts of folks? And we believe we can, but at the core, you need that certain thing. The people that you described all had that same inherent belief in America's promise or belief in youth. And so for an organization like ours, because we are spread around the country, sometimes, yes, we are looking for folks who look like our kids, and other times we're looking for people who have the cultural competence to work with our kids. So our kids are incredibly diverse. Probably 82% of our children are children of color, and there aren't that many folks in our pipeline who look exactly like our kids. So for us, it's about finding that spark inside, and we know that that site coordinator will, as you say, be one part of a web. We work with teachers, we work with guidance counselors. Sometimes you have more than one site coordinator in a school. But for me, yes, they can be trained, but you need that spark about showing the future to someone like my friend here.
And so that I heard you, as you were talking about this, the way that the mentoring happens, it's not just inspirational, right? I also love the, like, you don't just give advice. Everybody should go to college. People say, what is your advice for? I mean, I don't know you.
Right, right.
I mean, the only advice I can give to everybody is water. Everyone should drink more water, right? So that seems like good, neutral advice, right? Not even then, probably not everybody. But so much of what your leaders and mentors are doing is overcoming structural barriers. So what is the balance between helping individual young people overcome the barriers and doing some work of kicking the barriers down?
You know, I think it goes back to what I think is, in addition to water, the really key advice, which is self-advocacy. Really, if you could teach a young person something, it's you are going to have to figure out how to navigate your way. And sometimes that self-advocacy is reaching out to other people to help you get over something. Sometimes we can't spend all of our time trying to kick down the barrier because you'll spend a lot of time doing that and a whole bunch of people aren't going to get to where they need to be. So you actually have to start just helping people over that barrier, and over time that barrier will give a little bit of a way. But really, it's the same thing. My youngest son is deaf. We spent a lot of time with him on helping navigate your way around. If you get out at the wrong subway stop, how are you going to communicate with people? You got to solve it for yourself. I will not be there. And same thing with my scholars. Something goes wrong in a class, you decide you want to go to graduate school, you bounce a check, you whatever. How are you going to think about the resources that you have and the resources that you need to advocate for yourself? And I think if we can hand that off to a young people, in addition to water, you will really, really help them go far. That to me is key.
Yep.
Dion, all these people paid into you, invested into you. What is the conviction, the calling that you feel now relative to the other folks you're meeting along your path?
So what is the?
So what is the conviction or calling you feel relative to the other people you're meeting along your path?
The only thing that they haven't been able to do is give me the word socks. But, but no, my conviction and calling is that every child has a destiny, right? For me, I was blessed enough to know that I had that while I was in Head Start. And it's for me to make sure that every child moving along and every child, as I said before, that I see, bring that out of them. Because so many kids walk through life not knowing what destiny is, not knowing what a purpose is, not knowing what life beyond what they see every day, particularly if you live in very adverse circumstances, looks like. And it's for me to make sure that they know, and particularly, as a gay black male, for young, Moonlight has just changed my life for young people who are in the LGBT community and live in adverse circumstances, for them to know that destiny is on them and the hand of destiny is on their life. And whatever I have to do to make sure that they know that and pour that out of them, I'm going to do it. I want to make sure that everybody that I have an audience with does that as well.
Is it too easy for us to want to mentor the young people and leave their parents behind?
It's a great question. When I was reporting in Haiti, you know, people often go into a disaster, right, and say, let's go and save the children. And then as you're actually there, you're like, actually, we should invest in the parents, really. That, you can't save people by removing them. You actually have to invest in a community and invest in the grown-ups in the community and maybe even the grandparents in the community. It's a losing strategy to try to do it any other way, and I think that's exactly the case. I think you have to do both. You really have to figure out also what do they need, not what you think they need, but what do they tell you that they would really, really like to have, that they need, and you know, a lot of that is listening in communities, which I know you guys do really, really well, of not just helping the kids, but helping the community flourish.
I think bringing a whole community to bear, that's our model, but also remembering there are families behind all. I was the state superintendent in Nevada, and I always hated data in one way because every kid is a data point. There's a face behind that data point, and there's a family behind that face. Families look different. You might have two dads or two moms or only one of those, or you might live with your grandma. We have to accept that, and my takeaway from this summit, from a group I was in yesterday about parent and family engagement is, I really want to see us come away from here as sort of family nation, the follow-on to grad nation. It's the focus on the family that I am taking away from this, that if we want this next level of work to go to scale, we have to acknowledge who we are as a family, and we have to back our kids up that way.
Because parents still have to get permission, right?
Absolutely.
And so it was in my life, it was a strong partnership between those caring adults and my mom to say, you know, Dion can be in the gifted program. Dion can do X, Y, and Z, and for her to give permission to allow that to happen. So even the partners, the caring adults in my life, had to open her eyes and my family's eyes to what was possible in my life as well.
Absolutely.
So as we depart, I want to give each of you an opportunity basically to say one thank you to someone who either in your own life or who you've witnessed in the context of the programs that you've worked on and worked through. Because I feel like sometimes we don't, you know, we'll talk up here, but we won't say this sort of one thank you to the one relationship that, I mean, again, we've all had many of these relationships, but you know, sometimes there's not one that we've called out that has said, this one was at a crucial turning point or a crucial moment. So, Silica?
You know, my mom was tremendously important in my life, but I think one of the reasons why is she's a very sort of tough nut immigrant mom. And her attitude was like, you know, sit in bed for 24 hours and eat ice cream and cry if something's bothering you, but at that 25th hour, get up and make a new list. And her attitude about mentoring and relationships was, if this person wasn't able to help you, go cry for a day, and then tomorrow morning, who's next on your list? Cross that person off. Now we're on to the next person. And I think it really helped me think about these kinds of mentoring relationships, was having that 10 people who are gonna help you with different things, and other people who are gonna get stuck. So her attitude about it really framed my attitude about it.
So mine is a little tiny instance that I think about all the time. When I was in high school, I ran for a student council office and I lost. And listen, I was fat and I was gay and I was bullied and all of those things. And I grew up in a very small rural town, and I was getting in my locker and this teacher leaned down and said, look, sometimes the kids who don't do well here do the most in life. And I have never forgotten that moment. That's as long as it took. And so I came back, and you know what, I ran for student council the next year and I won. And I sit here today and I work for this amazing organization, but it all came down to that one person just touching me and saying, you know what, it's gonna be okay.
So I mean, I told the story about Miss Winfrey, and that was like a turning point in my life, but I'll say that being a caring adult doesn't stop. And so even at 25, I have caring adults in my life. And so I'll talk about one that's really meaningful to me now, who's my boss, Glenn Kino. I moved to LA a little bit over a year ago. I call myself a recovering politico from DC. But you know, I moved to LA, and Glenn, he is my father, brother, friend. And he tells me something that, you know, Maya Angelou taught me when I did my senior thesis on her. I'm a human being, nothing human can be alien to me, right? But he treats me like that, he treats everyone like that. But the thing that he, you know, said to me that has been pivotal as I'm moving in this next chapter in my life, he told me the first day he saw me, and he tells me this weekly. He says, you're destined for greatness. And he chastises me in that capacity. He mentors me in that capacity. He rebukes me in that capacity. He says all the time, you are destined for greatness.
Great.
And I take that home and I run with it.
That's awesome.
That's great. I will add a thank you of my own, and my thank you is actually slightly different. It is to the young adults who I work with, to my students, to the students at Wake Forest University. Students who I've worked with over the years I've often said they've saved my life, that they've mentored me, that they have taught me a great deal, but particularly during the 2016 year, which was a tough, tough year. The students of Wake Forest University really taught me so much. They were brave, they were courageous, they were hardworking. The students of Wake the Vote, the students of my Girls Stories course, now in 2017, two of my students, Suvra and Adriana, who are here, who traveled with me, who are going on to be educators. But over and over and over again, whenever I think, oh, it might not be worth it, it is my students who remind me that it absolutely is. And so in that case, I see them as mentors, continuing mentors to me. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.